Hey guys, welcome back to the Stitch Time podcast. So, this is part two of the last podcast that I did. This part will be talking about having my kidney taken out. So, as I explained in the last episode, basically what happened was I had a urinary tract infection that went up into my kidney. And when that happened, it caused a blockage and it basically damaged the kidney to the point that it was not worth keeping in and it would leave me with more infection. So the doctors decided that it would be best to have the kidney removed. I had a drain in the kidney for I think about 6 months, which I had to have the drain changed out a few times. One, um, they tried to change it out. I don't remember how often they change that kind of stuff out. But also, there was a couple times it got yanked out. It would get stuck on my chair. Shockingly, it never got ripped out in the gym. I was lifting full time with it. I was not um, lifting in bench gear, but I did actually compete raw at I don't even remember what the federation was. I benched at a meet down in Pittsburgh. Basically, I had been preparing for a meet, and originally I was going to cancel the meet. I remember laying in the hospital saying, "Ah, shit, I got to cancel this meet. I need to back out of it." And I ended up not backing out of it after I realized that maybe I can compete in this. And I actually competed with the drain in the kidney as kind of I wasn't worried about any records or chasing anything. It was honestly, it was just for me. It was to basically say that I still get to do what I love no matter what. And I competed at this meet and it was really emotional for me because first off, like here I am, I just survived, this pretty traumatic event and, I was life flighted and, I didn't really know what the future was. I didn't know as far as, I didn't know when I would have the kidney taken out. Like I think at this time we were still unsure if I was going to have the kidney taken out. So there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on in my head, and just being able to go to this meet, still compete, you know, it made me realize about no matter what, I'm gonna do what the fuck I want to do in life. Like I'm not gonna let anything hold me back. Nothing is gonna stop me. And I remember my wife had actually taken a picture of me, and every now and then I look at that picture because in that picture, I can just see the determination in my eyes, like, and at that meet, I was just grateful to be able to be there and to be doing what I love doing, which is, benching, under a bar. And I think I got 2 out of 3 of my lifts. It was, like I said, it was just basically to go there and to do it. So, it was really cool to be able to do that. And I'm glad that I stuck with it. I didn't back out of the meet. And so, that happened. And then I believe that was in like it was almost the end of summer. And I started seeing this other urologist, and basically we had met a couple times. They tested the kidney and they said that it was functioning less than 10%, which at that point, there's no point in being keeping the kidney in. I was on a medicine also to help with expanding the bladder. And I decided to get off of that because they said that could have been, something that could cause kidney damage. You know, um, I stopped taking all like pre-workouts, energy drinks. I tightened up my diet some just to really try to prevent any damage, because I understood that at some point I would be down to one kidney. And that was kind of a lot to take on because, here I am already like physically disabled. I already got a bunch of shit going on with my spine. And then now I'm having a kidney taken out. So I had the kidney taken out, I believe it was like 2 weeks before Christmas. And the surgery was really it was simple. I think they were in and out within a couple hours. I think less than a couple hours. I think it was done robotically. I have a pretty big scar. It's probably about this big. It's like it almost looks like an indent. And I remember waking up just in so much pain. And basically, what they do in a surgery like that is they fill your body with this gas. And when they do that, it's very painful. I remember waking up like, holy shit, I can barely breathe. And I asked them, and they were like, "No, that's normal. Like you're gonna feel like that." And what's hard is when you're a paraplegic, you can only feel certain things. So not really knowing what it is I'm feeling, I just know that I am struggling to breathe. So that was, it was kind of a shock, and it took probably 4 or 5 days before the pain really dissipated. The gas releases from your system, and you're able to breathe and kind of come back to feeling normal. You're really bloated during that time. Um, so that was a interesting experience. So I had the kidney taken out. I went home. I think it was within a week is when I went home, and I had all intentions of going back to work within I think 2 or 3 weeks of having this kidney taken out. I understood that like I was gonna have to ride the bus in. I work underground. So I wasn't gonna wheel in, I was gonna ride the bus. And shockingly enough, they did not give me any antibiotics, which I was kind of surprised by that because I thought, you just removed an organ from me. You would think, there's a scar there, you would think you'd put me on something. They did not put me on anything. And that shocked the hell out of me. So I remember I think I started to get a fever. Which, after I just going through all this and, fever is a big sign that there's an infection there. Went back to the ER, and basically they found that it was infected. The incision was infected. And I remember correctly, I think they had to I went to the hospital in Newcastle, and they actually drove me by a fucking ambulance to Pittsburgh, which blew me out of the water because I'm like, you guys can't take care of me there," and they could not. So they had to drive me by ambulance, and I believe it was like New Year's Eve, which was one of the worst nights to go to the ER, just because of like there's firework incidents and like people getting into fist fights and there's a lot of people drinking. So ERs are a disaster on those evenings. I actually been to the ER a couple times during holidays, and it's a terrible time to be there. So I get down to Pittsburgh, and basically they and it just so happened to be the room across from my room. They said that they had COVID. So I'm like, great, here I am. Just had a kidney taken out, less than 3 weeks ago. Here I am with this incision that they're telling me, is infected. And basically, they said, we're going to have to cut the incision open again. I'm like, what? So they said, we're going to have to cut it, and we have to let it heal by cutting it open. I was like, okay, you really set me back here. So they cut it open, they put me on antibiotics, and they sent me home. They sent me home that night, actually. And which that set me back a little bit. I did not go back to work when I said I was going to. I think I waited another 2 or 3 weeks until the incision closed up, just because we didn't want to rush it. And I believe I started lifting weights again. Um, Within I think it was 5 or 6 weeks of having the kidney taken out. It was real light, nothing crazy. Just kind of pump some blood, stay active, move around. And so I went back to work, and then I was changing the dressing every day. And then I was offered to go to St. Louis to train staff for 3 weeks, is what I signed myself up for. So that was a bit of an experience. I'm going to another state. I got this incision. I'm doing all the dressing work and keeping it clean and tealing up. But so that was a little bit of an experience. But and something I will say, whenever I had the kidney, like whenever they had first told me that I was going to have it taken out, like that was kind of hard to. It's kind of emotional because you're losing an organ that, you're supposed to have 2 of them, and I knew that my life would change moving forward after that because, like, my pre-workout now is basically espresso. I used to drink sugar-free Red Bull. I completely cut out. I don't drink any, like, Red Bull. I don't drink any, like, Alanis. I don't drink pre-workouts. My pre-workout is a double shot of espresso now. I have it as soon as I wake up, and that's all I drink for caffeine, really. I'll have pop sometimes, but that's it. And, knowing that, like, my bladder situation, like, how I would process, fluids was gonna be different. I was gonna have to go to the bathroom more often. And that's something I noticed is, like, I process things differently than what I did when I had 2 kidneys. So it's definitely been a learning experience. But so I had the kidney taken out, got back to work, and it healed up, and life kind of carried on. But something that always stuck with me after that incident was I remember when they told me if I wouldn't have been in the shape that I was in, they said that I probably wouldn't have survived. Probably wouldn't have made it because I was in really good shape. I was doing a lot of cardio, with the side hockey, and they said that I was in really good, like, really good cardio. And that ever since that kind of stuck with me because I make jokes now that, like, I enjoy lifting weights, but also I lift weights so it's harder to kill me. That's what I always say now is I want it to be harder to kill me. So, and I hate living with the mentality in the back of my head, just waiting for the next shit to pop off. But unfortunately, when you live a life of, like, setbacks and not knowing when, the shit's gonna hit the fan, and when it hits the fan, it hits it big time, you definitely change your mindset on how you handle things. And, I feel that that's, for me, it's been a good reason to really try to take my health serious, to understand that there could come a time where you might end up back in the hospital, and your best bet is to be as strong and as healthy as you possibly can be and just kind of well rounded in all those areas and just do the best you can do because you never know when it's gonna pop off, and it's happened over and over. And sometimes it is what it is. You just gotta handle it and move forward. And I think more people need to kind of have that mentality with life. I didn't really know what the direction I wanted to take this conversation, but a lot of people they will have something traumatic happen to them. And I think part of it is because a lot of people don't have traumatic events happen to them, or at least I hope. But you have to you kind of have to be prepared for those situations, like how to handle those situations. And I think, if you can kind of have an understanding of how to navigate life, you will be able to get through things so much easier. Like, and I think that's why it's important to challenge yourself and to, you know, um, break limits. Boundaries are meant to be broke because I think it will make you a stronger person. It will, there's a saying that's can't remember the saying right now, but basically, when you're hard on yourself or you do hard things, you will live a easy life. But if you do not do hard things, you will live a hard life. So basically, weak men live a hard life and strong men will live an easy life is more or less the saying. So I believe that it's important to, challenge yourself, put yourself through the paces because when shit really does go, difficult, how are you going to process it? Are you going to know what to do? And I'm not saying I know what to do or I've always known what to do, but I will say that, like, me challenging myself has definitely helped me along the way. It has made comeback so much easier because I know what to do, or, like, my level of like cardio or like where I'm at, like it is so much easier to recover from things and to be able to overcome things. And unfortunately, that's been a life of getting through like tough shit, like coming back from setbacks of, being in the hospital or like major surgeries. But I think that's important to do. And that's, you know, I don't really know what else to say about that. Um, I think there's too many people that they're too soft. You know, you can baby yourself through situations like that, or you can suck it the fuck up and say, we got to do this, man. We got to get through this. And you have to figure it out. You have to have a plan of like, okay, this shit sucks, but how am I going to get through this? And if you're just going to sit there and mope and, feel sorry for yourself, you're not going to come through it as strong as you could. Like, yeah, you might still make it through, but imagine how easier it could be if you actually put your mind to it and actually like focused on it and worked through it. I promise you things would be so much easier for you. And that's just from personal experiences. So really keep that in mind. You know, don't be afraid to challenge yourself. And I don't mean just like physically, but like mentally or, even like a job. If there's a project and your boss is asking for volunteers, do it. Why not? You know what I mean? Like, um, in doing those kind of things, not only will it make those things easier, but also it could give you more opportunities that I think, more people need to realize. And I understand that a lot of people are content, or at least they say they're content, but they will do plenty of bitching about their situation. But whenever you offer up an opportunity to them, they don't take it. And I've seen that firsthand being, someone in a management position where I will see somebody that I'm like, you'd be really good. You'd be a good fit in a leadership role. I'm like, nah, I'm good. And then like you'll talk to that person, and basically they'll complain about like their finances or like their situation. And you're like, but I offered this to you. Like, and obviously if they don't want to do it, sure. But when you want something bad enough, like you're willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen. So, okay, yeah, moving up can be scary. It can be hard. It means more responsibilities, but at the same time, like if you want to change your situation, you got to be willing to go out of your comfort zone. And if you're not willing to go out of your comfort zone, then you're always going to be where you're at. And nothing's ever going to change. Your situation's not going to get better. Your finances are not going to change. It will always be the way it has been. And I think a lot of people think that if they just sit around and wait, that, an opportunity will just fall in their lap instead of like getting off their ass and actually doing something about it. And I know I'm being pretty blunt right now, but that's the facts. If you want something, you got to go for it and you have to work at it. And it might not be every day and you might not see progress every day. You might not see progress for months, years. But if there's something you want, and if you want change, then you have to be that change you want. That's the bottom line here, people. You have to be that change. And you got to be willing to work your fucking ass off for it because nobody else is going to go out there and get it for you. So if you take one thing from this entire episode, if you want something or if you're going through something, you have to work. It's the bottom line. You got to work your ass off. You got to be willing to do whatever it takes to get through it. So, a lot of people say like I'm inspiring and shit, but I'm like, okay, sure, but or am I just like there's a problem in front of me and I need to solve it, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to solve that problem. And I might fail 100 times, but as long as I don't quit, that's all that matters. Obviously, if you continue to fail, you need to revisit what you're doing and say, okay. maybe we're not doing the right thing. Maybe I need to switch up what I'm doing. But the point is that you continue to work and you don't quit on yourself. You got to adapt, overcome, and conquer. That's the bottom line. You got to do it. I hope you know, take something from this podcast episode and apply it to your life. I hope you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out. Let me know how you think I'm doing. Send me a message on social media, leave me a comment, you know, follow me along on my social media accounts. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and whatever podcasting app you stream, follow me along on there. With that being said, adapt, overcome, and conquer. Till next time, guys. Later.